Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast on Prince. My name is Michael Dean, and joining me today, Big Sexy and Sax. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing well. May 1st is here. That means summer is not too far behind.
Yeah, man. And I don't think we've done one of these in a while. Actually, we did one a couple weeks ago, which I haven't even put out yet, but that's another story. But it just feels good to just get on the mic and talk about some Prince. It's not an interview today or anything of that nature, but I just wanted to geek out on Prince. One of the big things for both of us, we have started to read Duane Tudahl's new book. I'm going to pull that so I have that title in front of me. Prince and the Parade and Sign of the Times Era Studio Sessions 1985 and 1986. This is the follow-up to his first book about Purple Rain era recordings, and that book was phenomenal. I'm sure you have all read that or heard about it. So this new one coming up is about an era for me that is probably one of my favorites, if not the favorite, for a very long time. There's a lot of music and activity from this particular time frame. So just starting to really the early parts of diving into that, and just want to talk a little bit about that, see if there was any thoughts. We're not reviewing the book. It's not time for that yet. We haven't finished it. At least I haven't. But man, Big Sexy. Let's just jump into it. Any thoughts so far? Anything coming to your mind? Starting to read this book? Are you excited to read it? Or?
Yes. I was extremely excited when I got the notification from you that we were going to do that. For anyone who read Duane's first book, the man does his homework, and he comes with receipts for everything he has. And so it's very meticulously researched and it's very well written. And so with that, going into this new one, and again, like Mike said, this is a great time, to be a Prince fan, because there was so much happening, and it starts off with things I didn't even know. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but there are things about touring I didn't know. A lot of the recording things I didn't know, and a lot of things were explained fuller, more fleshed out, and it's a lot. And the good thing about Duane, and again, this is just my own personal bias, I like long books. That means you're going to get it all in there, because when people write a book about a certain, or anyone famous, and it's like 200 pages, like, really? Were you even there, man? What? And with Duane, you definitely get all of the information, and he backs up all of his sources. And I'm about 70 pages in so far, and I had to stop to finish the Tommy Mottola book, which is also great, but It is so good. It is so good, and it's taking me right back to 1985, and I'm loving it. I know it's just going to get better. I know this.
Yeah, this, just to talk about the length and the detail, this would be on the, on the Snyder Cut side of things.
Oh, yeah.
in terms of, it's going all the way in. There's a lot of slow-mo in here. There's a lot of, you get to the nitty gritty of things. And what I love about his first book, and I'm loving about this one, is to me, it just takes you on this almost day for day journey.
Yeah.
Of being with Prince. And, this book picks up during the Purple Rain tour. And it's a lot of times it was hard for me to envision that, okay, I see Prince, he's doing all Purple Rain, but behind the scenes in his day to day, he's ramping up a Parade album. Mm-hmm. It's just hard to, I'm like, so he was, sort of starting to jump into that. Like, it just seems so crazy. And, was finishing up Around the World in a Day. And he's actually starting on Sheila's second album and they're recording. And it's just, again, without giving too much away, it's just fascinating in terms of his day-to-day life. He's doing this super big giant tour, Purple Rain, which is huge. And when Duane is hilarious. I'm looking at it right now. Tuesday, January 10th, 1985. Venue, the Summit, Houston, sold out, 17,000 people. I'm like, and I think the Syracuse one was like, did it say like 30,000 or 50 or something? I'm just like, that
Carrier
is
Dome, yeah.
So many people he is performing for. And then he'll do the show, and then he goes to a studio and starts recording songs, and they'll just be doing that all night. Like they'll leave, at 5 a.m. or something, and then they got to go to another city doing a sound check that could last a couple hours, and just doing, just this constant working every day. I just was like, I was blown away by that. And it's not like he's just doing throwaway songs. He's doing classic Prince songs that and love. And I'm like, it's just a trip to me. So I'm blown away reading it again, just because of Prince's work, man, and like the dedication to it. It just blows me away. And to hear them talk about the recordings of some of these songs as they're going along, I'm just like, wow. And you get to see the process. If you're a fan of at least being able to understand the process a little bit. Oh, okay, he worked on this song this day. They did overdubs on this day. Then he went back and worked on it again, or he started something new, or, he got the band together to work on this. And it's just like, God. And one of the things I was thinking about too, I was like, he had to have so much going on in his head, to keep all of this going. Like, not only is he sort of have to think like, okay, I am the performer. I'm the head person on this giant tour. I have to be on point on stage. Everyone's watching me, really, right? My attitude sort of determines if this thing is successful or not. So not only having all that, but then to have all the words to the songs in your head, all the, the choreography cues, the cues with the lighting and all, working with the band. And then I'm like, for most people, that's enough. That is a tremendous job unto itself. Like, that's a lot of moving parts to have in your brain. But then he also has, okay, I'm working on the next record, the next album. I got that visual in my head. I'm working on that. I'm coming up with these new songs, and then to know the words to those songs and to write them and come up with them, and the parts to the songs, the actual music, teaching this to other people. And then have the band like, okay, I'm going to have you work on this song I'm working with for this other person. We're not going to actually perform it in our shows, but I want you to know it. Like, aside from all of the other songs you need to know that I'm hitting you with on a daily basis. I was like, God, his brain, man. It just shows the power of the human mind. Like, you can do so many things. And, in his case, he was doing so many creative, great things, creating something. It just was like, God, like, he was on fire, man. Dude was on fire for a very long time. So yeah, I was just like, I'm tripping.
Well, one of the things that caught my attention was back when he did, the Purple Rain tour hit San Francisco for 6 nights, I believe, and I was at 2 of them. On one of the nights, the second encore, he did America. And nobody in the building knew what the hell that was, but they tore it up. And so I thought we were special. And then as I'm reading this, on some nights he would open up with 17 days instead of Let's Go Crazy. I'm like, what? Where was I, man? What is all this?
Yeah, he was. It's amazing, man. Like I said, and that's just scratching the surface of the surface. As we're getting into, I've gotten to the point in the book where he's actively recording stuff that is parade material. Yeah. And I've heard some of the stuff before. The great thing that Duane is doing here is that he is pulling from a lot of different sources and grabbing them all and sort of creating a narrative with it, which is great. So you're getting the quotes from the people that were there, plus his interviews and stuff. And, just to hear the story again of Prince going into the studio and starting to record the beginning of the Parade album.
Wow.
And playing those songs all the way through.
Back to back.
Yeah, that I've heard it before, but just to read it, there was a different way it was sort of being told, reading it here. And I read that and, listening to Susan and Peggy and what they're describing it. And I'm just like, that was probably some head buster-ish. Because he's already a dope motherfucker, but then to sit there and watch him like just start playing the drums, and he's got these 4 songs in his head, and he's just, okay, cool, laid all the drum down. Okay, let me get on the bass and just start adding, and it's a suite of music. I almost feel like I've so associated these songs as separate songs in my mind, but I was like, if you really just sit down and think, like, if it had made that one track on the, if it had been like, no, that's one song, you would have been blown away. But you're like, whoa. And if they would have told us, like when that album came out, if they would have somehow been some marketing thing and said the first, I don't know how long those songs are together, 10 minutes or the first 13 minutes, he recorded that, himself, like just one shot, and then just added. That would have added so much. You'd have been like, this would have been his most amazing body. You'd have looked at it. I would have looked at it way different. I mean, I still looked at it as dope, but to know that that's how he did those first songs is just one long suite of music, I would have been like, are you kidding? Like, how do you go from one range to this? It's so fascinating. And I was reading that. So I read that stuff and I had stopped the book. I was like, okay, I want to go listen to this album. I listened to the whole album in its entirety, and I've heard that album millions of times. I was hearing stuff that I've never bothered to pay attention to, in the album, particularly like Sometimes It Snows in April. I was listening to that. I was like, wow, okay, the way they were describing it, recording it, I can hear it. And that stuff I didn't even want to pay attention to before. Like I was hearing like somebody's out of key or something playing the piano in certain parts, but I was like, they left that in. And I was like, I never picked up on that. But it's just, that's an amazing fucking record in the context of how it was created. The songs, just everything, Kiss, all of that stuff. That album is nuts, man. So I'm loving, so far the book is making me really kind of take another eye or another ear to material that I've heard, forever. Well,
Going back to January 1985, in particular, the night of the American Music Awards, now I have the whole story. Mm-hmm. I had heard bits and pieces here and there. Now I know exactly what happened and why it happened. And I'm like, wow. That's just, wow. I mean, a lot of things were going on there, and he did not seek that attention. The situation occurred and had to be addressed. That was really all there was to it.
Yeah, and it's interesting to learn. I don't know if this would be the only spoiler I'll say. There's another song that he addresses this situation in. It just hasn't been released, but I had never heard about this until I was reading the book. I was like, really? And when I think I don't have it in front of me, but I think the title of the song is something he's done before. Like I've heard there's something he did, I think on the Purple Rain tour, where they're saying that title of the song in it. And now I get it. Okay. I was like, oh, okay. Interesting. But anyway, yeah, there's still a lot to unlock. And even for like super hardcore fans, you're gonna just from what I read so far, there's still stuff in there that I myself was like, oh, I never heard of this song, and da-da-da. And I can only imagine. I'd be thinking to myself, because Duane started mentioning these songs I've never heard of, and he starts to kind of describe them a little bit, and I'm like, oh, see this motherfucker, he heard this stuff. He's obviously heard these songs. I was like, okay. I was like, God damn, there's always, even Prince still now to this day, there's always like just something like, God, I ain't never heard that. Or I want it. What is this you're describing? I ain't never heard this. So I love it, man. There's a lot to unlock and unpack, but so far I'm digging it.
And think about what you said earlier. This book starts in January 1985. He's on tour, and he's still recording, starting to record Parade, or the ideas are starting to come together. He's recording Romance 1600. Around the World Today is done. Wow.
yeah, exactly. And he's just getting started. Like really?
And he's on tour when all this is happening too.
Like, the family stuff is done.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just like, God damn. Yeah, man, this is, yeah. And so, and also, we want to welcome Aunt Pooh is here. I think he just slipped in.
Yeah, who in the hell left the gate open?
Hilarious. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I got my exercise and dose of vitamin D. Don't even go there. Out in the sunlight with my beautiful daughter.
Nothing wrong with that. Okay. All right. It sounds like you got your little drink on there or something.
Yeah, you know how I got to do it.
I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at you. Well, and so, reading the book so far and listening to some more music, I want to do a pitch meeting. That's what I'm going to call this. I have another Prince movie idea. There's probably going to be a lot of these types of things, but, and if they want to take this, I'm not mad at it. Go ahead. But I want to pitch.
You want your credit, your EP credit.
I'm not on my DJ Quick right now. I'm not.
Wow.
Shout out to DJ Quick. No, I mean, just because I want them to do something great because I'm a Prince fan, so I don't need the credit, and I'm not like it's that good anyway. But whatever we can put out there to push this forward, man, I say good for it. So this is a pitch meeting. I came up with a movie idea for Prince, so here it is. I'm saying you could do a Prince movie, but it would center around Prince, Morris Day, and Vanity. And so essentially the movie is about them coming up and meeting, everything, the triple threat and all that stuff. And it ends at Purple Rain. So you sort of show this whole journey and thing, but it's not just about Prince, because that'd be it's already enough to even cast a Prince and all that. But I'm like, I think the movie would even be just as exciting and put some more stuff in there if you do it almost kind of like Straight Outta Compton, where it's not just about Easy or it's not just about Dre. It's about the three people. So this one, of course, it's about Prince. But there's also just as much, you can have Morris's story in there, which I think you could pull from his book, right? And Vanity. And I think Vanity offers stuff that a lot of us don't know about all of her story. But again, you have the person we all know, Prince, but we also have the comedic element of Morris Day, which we know, and it's a great story. And you have, sexy, bomb as hell Vanity that offers a different perspective story-wise too, right? So, and my setup for the movie, like how you would start it, you would actually start the movie at the premiere of Purple Rain. And it would be like, you almost started from Morris's perspective first, and he's going to Purple Rain, and I was saying, he was like, they wouldn't let Morris into the premiere. Like, he's like, what's going on? And the press is kind of starting to look, this is before Morris becomes a superstar, but he's known a little bit. And so it'd be Morris and Pepe Willie trying to get in. And then Morris would see Prince, of course, you'd sort of reenact when Prince was walking to the premiere, getting out of the limo. But in this case, Morris calls out to Prince. Oh, Prince, you ain't gonna let me in? And then, I have Morris say, you took, but did you give? So I was like, you would pull shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go deep, but I would have him say that. And Prince, would sort of break that sort of monotone sort of look that he has. And he looks over and he sees Morris, and then he sees Pepe. And he looks, and then he looks back at, he nods to Big Chick and whispers in his ear. And then Big Chick, he basically telling Big Chick, go ahead and let him in. And when they sort of let Morris in, he starts doing his Morris thing, the cameras, everybody's taking this picture of Morris. And Prince is he standing back and he's staring at him. And then as you sort of gaze into Prince's stare, and that would be, that Prince stare. So the actor had to be on point. But then you fade into him and it fades back to when they was kids. And you go back, north side, Minneapolis. And it would pick up. I would say it would pick up. And again, I'm not being totally accurate, like when things were happening, but it would pick up with Prince in a telephone booth. It'd be outside at night. And he's in the telephone booth. It could be rain, it could be raining. Like that'd be your problem, but it'd be raining. He's in a telephone booth and he's on the phone with his dad, asking his dad if he come and live with them. And his dad is like, no, And then his dad hangs up the phone and Prince is like shocked, and then he starts crying. And he'd be a teenager or a young kid, but he'd be crying. And then it sort of cuts from there. You go into, Prince moving in with the Andersons and Andre and all that. And and you'd have that. So you could have that type. And then you'd go to Morris, where he was at that time. And you would have, introduce Morris then going to the new school and, seeing Prince and Andre and those guys playing in a band. And he's like, oh. And then you show how he met with Andre, Simone, and Prince, and how they came together. So you kind of have that. Oh, this is how they came together. They met this way. They were all young, and you could have a series of scenes. When they're kids and sort of misadventure type stuff as they're starting to grow up, while they're like getting more deeper into the music. And so you'd be able to show. And then the other part is that you could show Vanity, or wherever she was at that time, possibly. And so you know what I mean? So you have these three stories that sort of coming together. And of course, it'd be once the success started to really kind of go and they started going on tour and, all the drama that we already know with that and not letting them perform and the food fights. And you could show a little bit of Prince with the Rick James and how he finally meets Vanity, right? And so that would be a great cinematic moment where they have the person playing Rick James, Rick James, bitch. You could have him say that, you know what I'm saying? And you could see how him and Prince's sort of interactions were, and you'd see Vanity and how Prince took Vanity. And so you could have all of that. You could have, there'd be a scene of maybe Prince being booed at the Rolling Stone and Morris is filming it and trying to counsel them back. And then you kind of show how they was tight at one point, and then how they start to splinter away. And they all sort of start to splinter away. And, it basically gets through showing a little bit of them making Purple Rain. And then, in terms of the relationship aspect of the movie, it would be between Vanity and Prince. And you can see them kind of breaking apart. And you might see that Prince had other people kind of out there as well. And then Vanity's story, she decides to leave that. Maybe it wasn't a great situation for her. And she meets Berry Gordy, and then for her story, it would end with The Last Dragon. And for Prince's, it would pick back up with Purple Rain came out. We all know that story. And then, in terms of Morris's thing, it was like, well, Morris ended up becoming an even bigger star on his own. And he had his Oak Tree and he sort of had his thing. And, your title card ending at the very end, Vanity passed away at this time due to whoop. Prince ends up having multiple success and he passed away at that. Morris Day is still around doing his thing. He's still out there doing his, and you could have, the movie could end with the actual Morris Day in the time a performance. And it's like, even he's an old, he's the man he is now, I think maybe in his 60s or something. And he's still doing, the Bird. And earlier in the movie, you may have had a reenactment where they were like in the studio kind of creating that. And it's like, he's still living it on and he's older. He's still doing it. I think that would be a phenomenal movie, man. If done right.
You could take the performance then of the time from the Grammys a couple of years ago. Because that way you have the original members and you still have that same vibe.
Yeah. Or they could just record a whole new, you can get all the guys together now. And just have them just do a performance. But I just think I think that would be, again, I was really thinking of like a Straight Outta Compton, which I thought what they did great was that they took three superstar sort of stories, and they wove them together and showed how they had a career and
they did.
And the influence that they had. Because you could even have, they could be the part where Prince fires Jam and Lewis, and even if you just had them later in the story where, remember Jam and Lewis? Oh, they're good. I heard they working with Janet, or or you just saw a little bit of, okay. And, again, for a lot of us, we already know the story, but think of all the people who don't, they just know of Prince, or they just know of Morris because they see him all the time on social media, or they've seen him in pop culture, but they don't know the story behind it, and I think that would be a great story, how they was kids. You show how some of the, generational curses of the families can affect how people are when they get older. And I was gonna say, when you first show Prince and you show him as a kid and he's in the phone booth crying because he can't stay with his dad, I think that would have that can play into, you could see how maybe later why he was acting a certain way later in the movie, and he didn't want I gotta have all the control, or, do it my way. Why would he become that kind of dude? Well, you can kind of see he been through some shit, that framed who they were. So, and even with Morris, you kind of touch into, man, Morris, you doing coke, Morris? Oh man, or what I mean? Like, it kind of show how he started getting spiraling into that, and even same with Vanity, But yeah, I think it would. And you have them sort of as young people, so that's always inspiring thing to see people sort of rise up. And to be able to show them from kids to, end it where they at the brink of superstardom, I think that'd be that'd be a dope movie. You need to go ahead and do that. And get somebody like Spike to do it. And you have to have, Spike could do it. And, how he always have to have his little hallway slide scene. Yep. That would be Prince probably like going to the premiere and just slide that Spike Lee shot of Prince coming up the red carpet and everybody going crazy, and he's like terrified, kind of like scared, like, wow, I really got this far with it. That would be some shit. That would be some shit.
They gotta include the scene where they're in a restaurant. I believe it was a restaurant, and Prince is talking to what is going to become the time, and Alex is all, I need to get paid, Mo. Singing.
Oh, yeah.
Morris, you're singing. What? I am?
I need more money. Yeah, it would be a lot of class. It would be a funny movie, but it would be a serious movie, because I think you couldn't not deal with sort of the changing demeanor, if that's a word to say, of Prince too, right? Like, because again, he's he would be the focus of the movie.
And that's talked about in the book a little bit, how his demeanor changes, with success.
And who's wouldn't? But it would. Exactly. I think it would humanize. It would just to show him as a child and a younger adult. That always helps, so you can at least learn a little bit about a person. And I think there's a lot to learn and to discover. Not all of them. And I think the stuff with Vanity would be like, wow, I never really knew that. Okay, amazing. You could see how that could be a very inspirational type of thing. But anyway, like I said, I got, and that just kind of got inspired because I was reading the book, man, and I was just like, God, all these guys, and that's the other thing, they're so young. Like, Prince was in his 20s and stuff. Doing a parade and all that. I'm just like, wow, like, just it was so talented, man. It's an understatement, but it's just, and then like the people around him, like, I was kind of thinking like, he's obviously, he had become a superstar at that point, but he was still early, and he just had these people that were just down to do what he said, because you believed in it. There's a lot going on with the engineers, Peggy and Susan. And I'm like, why did they do it? Like, some people just, man, I don't need this job. Like, I don't get paid to do, to be on this guy's whim. But it's like they actually, loved what he was doing. Like, they was into it for the most part. And I was like, God, I was trying to imagine working for somebody who he would just call you up at any given moment and say, okay, I'm ready to go. You got to be here. Let's get busy. And who was it in the book? I think it was Eddie M.
It was Eddie M. Yeah.
And the stuff he was saying. And I never thought about it like that, but in reality, that would be the only way I would have thought about it, the way he described it. And I was like, that says a lot, man. He's got you just waiting, and he'll let you know when he needs you. But you have to like really be like, you know what, this dude is the shit. I'm around this guy that is incredible, and he's in there doing his magic, and like he's on call on me to be a part of it, and I gotta be here and be ready. That's dope, man. I guess that always happens when I think of like Death Row Records. I think of, or at least the guys that were working with Dre, like on the Chronic. Like, okay, Dre's doing, he gonna ask, for a verse. I'm gonna be here. I'm ready, or I can contribute a beat. He might use it and develop it. I'm here. I'm ready. I got rhymes on deck. I'm ready to go. And I was like, God, that has to be an amazing place to be in, where you got these dudes that are dope at what they do. They're underneath the master of that particular field, and like he's like, yo, I'm gonna give you a call when I need you, and just you gotta be ready to jump, to get down, and I'm on some magic shit, and you a part of this. It just, what I mean, that type of like, man, I'm good enough to be here with this dude, and he's creating some ill shit. That's amazing, man. That's amazing. But anyway, man, I could just keep running. Prince is cold piece of work, man. I love it. But yeah, I'm just continuing to. I'm gonna keep reading. I'm taking my time with this one. The last one I kind of, bulldoze through, but this one I'm just reading a little bit. I'm letting it soak in, and I stop and think about like, okay, he just was recording this song and this song, like, and I go back and look at the dates, and I'm like, there's really no break times. Like, he's doing a show, then they go to the studio, then another show, then he goes. It's like, man. Even his little vacation, I never heard about that.
Vacation, yeah, 2 days.
I'm just like, wow. I was just like, wow. He could have did anything. He could have been partying, and I wouldn't have blamed him. Like, just, nope. He was like, I'm working, man.
He's like, I got there. Okay, see it. I'm done. Let's go back. I'm bored.
Yeah, that tripped me out. I was like, okay, wow. But yeah, man. So,
I've been reading it as well. I like I said earlier, I was reading and finishing the Tommy Mottola book, and I stopped that to read some of this, and I'm all, hunched up on the couch, just like, yeah. I'm like, you know what? Let me stop, because then once I get into this, I'm gonna be into it.
Yeah.
So let me finish up these other things, clear the plate a little bit, and then just slowly jump in and savor all of these good stories from this book. And I am loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's all I got on it. We're definitely going to do a review at some point. But yeah, if you need any incentive, if you're any sort of Prince fan, or you're just a musician fan of music, I'm telling you right now, go ahead and get that first book by Duane. You will enjoy it. It's a thick, in-depth look, and it's one of them things, man, I don't want it to be over.
Exactly.
That's why I'm like, I'm not going to brush through it. I don't want it to be over that fast. So I'm going to take my time and enjoy this. I guess that's like some people, when they listen to the podcast, they'd be like, sometimes I think, man, the podcast was over 3 hours. That's a long time. Then somebody emailed me or something, said, man, I listened to it twice. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, I wish it was longer though. Okay. So yeah, I get it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Big Sexy and Sack. Yo. Where can they find you? You got to plug your other. You have another show too that you do.
Yes. I can be found at the usual haunts. Mark Wiggins 2 on Instagram. Mark Wiggins on Facebook and WSE Mark on Twitter. And I have wrapped up the second installment of This Is My World, my little solo spot in the podcast Juice universe. And on this episode, I delve deep into the 1987 Grammy Album of the Year category. And yes, I listened to every one that was nominated, so I do not talk out of my hat. And it was a good time, and I learned a lot about a lot of different music. And, you know, again, when I started doing that, I decided to step out of my own comfort zone and try things I've never tried before. And this was a piece of that. It was a lot of fun for me. I hope you guys, enjoy it.
One question, and
Yes.
this is to push people to listen to it. So you go over all of the albums that were nominated for that year,
Yes.
and do you give your pick?
Yes, I do.
Okay, don't we got to go through the show to get the pick, but all right, I love that. That's a great idea. All right, and with that, I'm gonna do Ampu. Shout out to Ampu, ladies and gentlemen. Podcastjuice.net. You can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, our Patreon. And listen, we need you to help. We need you to continue to support us on Patreon. If you haven't already, you can sign up for just $1 a month. That's all you got to give for your appreciation to what we do here. Come on, I know you ain't. If you can't afford $1 a month, then that's another podcast. But come on, y'all. And let me just think. And that's what we're gonna start doing on some of the next shows. We're gonna start naming our Patreons just to show them more love, because y'all are just like doing an excellent job with the support. So we just want to shout out. We love you. With that said, work it like a job. We'll see you next time. Peace.